The ocean, the forest, the rising and the setting of sun are all sacred. How do we define this space that we design as sacred? The light, the air, the sound, the texture we mold, and fundamentals we seek to create a space. But how do we call them a sacred? Let's find out about a master speaker architect Sanjay Mohe in today's topic, In Pursuit of Sacred Space. Please join me in welcoming architect Sanjay Mohe, founding partner of Bangalore-based Mindspace Architects. Architect Mohe is a well-known face adorning a lot of architectural forums, talks and juries. He has a working association of 21 years with Chandravarkar and Thakkar, besides which his experience also includes a short stint in late Charles Correa's office and in Saudi Arabia. An alumnus of JJ College, his work includes many award-winning projects, institutes, residences, housing, research lab, memorial libraries, hospice, beach resorts, and many more. Some of the awards won include JK Great Master Award for Lifetime Achievement, Golden Architect Award by A+D and Spectrum Foundation, JK Cement Architect of the Year, and many more, and gold medal from Arcacia. Please welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Everyone must be very, very hungry, and I have already been told to finish it fast. Okay. So I'll try to make it as fast as possible. Now, thanks for calling. It's a privilege to be here. You'll wonder why this title when we are talking about heritage and modernism. Actually, we did one small project recently. We had done one temple in Bangalore, and then there's this saint, the Swamiji, who used to stay there and who actually was instrumental in that temple. His birthplace was near Trichy, so they wanted to restore that and then add one more temple next to it. It's kind of in a village kind of place. So eventually I want to show that because I thought that is the most appropriate thing for the topic. So how do you make a space sacred? And once Mr. Doshi was talking about it, and he said that you have this Gruha Pravesh, and then some priest comes, he sprays some water, says some mantra, have some flowers, and suddenly the same space, your own living room, becomes sacred. And what is that quality? Is it just a religious kind of a thing, or is it something more to it? And that's something which is, and actually you are evoking your senses in terms of sound, in terms of smell, in terms of light, and you have that tirtha. So actually you are sensitizing all the senses to bring you closer to something sacred. For me, I'm not a big, I don't understand music, but I feel amongst any art form, this is something which brings you very, very close to divine. You close your eyes and you can actually create your own space. I don't think so. Any other form of art, at least for me, doesn't bring you as close to music and as close to divine as you. You get goosebumps when you actually listen to it. And one more thing is it can make you cry. I actually would like to sort of note down each one of us. Do you remember any architectural space which would have made you cry? And I always try to remember, but do we have such powerful architectural spaces? Many times they are more connected with religion because you sort of condition yourself to go close to the divine, and then as a sequential thing, you go from one layer to another to third, and then you try to come closer to divine, and that's kind of a whole transition which happens. This is in Kaban Park in Bangalore. To me, this space is absolutely divine because it feels like a cathedral almost, and then the sound of those bamboos kind of brushing against each other and making that wonderful sound, and then the breeze flowing through, and this is what you want to capture in your work. This is in Badami, again that kind of a space which makes you think of something which is much, much larger than the physical space. So what is it actually? What is it that we try to come closer to something which is divine? It's something, the space that elevates you, creates that kind of awareness. It's kind of enriching experience. There's something which lasts with you all the time, and makes you emotional, and that eventually takes you to the divine zone. This is in Malaysia. This is one of these big cave kind of a thing. And the moment you go there, you don't need any shrine or anything. That just that presence of that nature and the way light comes from the top, it is absolutely divine. It sort of transports you into a totally different kind of zone. You're not even aware if there is a huge crowd around you or whatever. It just takes you into a different. So I have this habit of making these kind of sketches. When I don't have anything to do, I keep drawing these sketches. And this is something to just capture the light, the power of the space. This is another one without any context, nothing. I just keep drawing this to find out what you could actually, what is that quality which takes you beyond just the architectural physical space. And then you further take it forward and start drawing sections and try to understand how you can actually, create those layers within that. Now, another thing is about the monumentality of the place. This is in Madurai, and you walk through one of the small streets, and suddenly you see these monumental columns. That width of the street is almost about 6 feet. You can actually touch both those shops with your own hands. But the presence of these 5, 6 columns, so it was supposed to be a continuation of some palace, but just that presence sort of takes you something which is, your memories, and it gets a totally different dimension. Whether you call it divine or not, I don't know, but it's playing with the scale, playing with the monumentality, and you get that factor. Now, I was talking about playing with these senses to sensitize you, bring you closer to God or closer to divine. But water has this quality of evoking all the senses. You can hear water, the sound of the water you can hear, you touch water, you feel it. You can see the ripples, the reflection, the variations on the surface. The pure water doesn't smell, but water has that moist quality, and you can taste it. And that's the reason almost every religion gives so much importance to the water, and it's always becomes part of worship, part of the ceremonies. And this is something which you want to celebrate. And because of our climate, you have this connection with water, with these ghats where you put your feet into it, and our climate allows us to do it. So it's about absorbing as against eliminating, which happens in the West probably because of the temperature of the water. We have this, sort of advantage of being part of it and celebrate it, which you keep finding it all across. And that element we have tried to use in many of our projects right from the beginning. And what is that Indianness we talk about? And it's not about putting Indian columns or whatever arches, but it's just that feel of it, just that idea of introducing few of these elements which sort of connect you to your past, your history. This is one of the old projects. This is for terminally ill patients called Karunashraya. So this was probably the most difficult thing to design a place for somebody who is going to come there and spend last few days into this. So hence the tranquility of water and the connection with something larger, which we try to take it even in the house. This is a house in Pune where the water just comes through the whole space, goes across, and eventually gets connected to the swimming pool. And again, that idea of those kind of steps, what I was talking about. So you have this possibility of sitting under a steps with your feet in the water, maybe beer in the hand. This is Titan Corporate Office, where again we use this same idea of this has a lake close by, so it's almost like pulling the water from the lake and bringing it in, and then see the reflections of that. But idea is same, using it in different forms. This is to create a divine space. I don't think so. It's only about the scale. It could be a very quiet space, very very tangible, very close in scale. But still, you will be able to get it. I don't want to get. There's no time, so I won't explain it too much in detail, but we sort of created this memorial for Dr. Anji Reddy, whom I worked very closely. And when he passed away, we sort of chose a site next to their research lab and built this within the trees. So you see that you see that gap at the end, which we call it as a presence of absence. So you feel his absence, but you are within that space, and you can touch the water before you enter it, and you sort of rediscover the whole space. So you walk through this, you see that his bike, what he used to use, and the other end is his first Mercedes car, which is kept as a end of the spine, and you turn around. This is that gap with a reflection of that gap. And then there is a small museum-like thing displaying his collections, his achievements. And then you come into this space again. And along the walk, you have one of these diagonal views, the reflection, these water bodies. We were extremely sort of passionate about making them totally black, reflective, and with that void, where his ashes are kept below, but we wanted to make sure that you don't see the bottom of that void. So there is a sense of infinity, sense of loss, and then the entire sort of landscape gets reflected within that. And these are all gulmohar trees, so the whole ambience changes. When it is during May, it all becomes pink, and all the whole landscape totally changes. And then in the night, you have these lights which come up. Linus is here. He's the one who worked on the lighting. So Korea always spoke about this ritualistic path, and in our culture we carry a lot of memories. We have this baggage of all these kind of rituals and sentiments and all, and we try to sort of, even when we do this cutting edge research labs, we still have to follow Vastu sometimes. So it's always balancing between these two elements. And that's the reason when we get these accidental things happening. When you do this kind of flooring, we had never expected that this kind of thing would happen. This is in a school. But with all our projects, all of us would have experienced that these kind of things keep happening. This is in Trichur. Vinod is here, so he knows about it. And we had been there almost about 10 years back, and we had noticed this. There is one small triangular kind of a niche there, through which that shikara gets framed. And that was, I mean, it's about 1.5 foot by 1.5. It's only that much triangle. But you stand there and you get connected to something divine. And this used to be a ritual, but when I went about a year back, it had transformed into something else. So people started putting stone there, and when they look at that shikara, do sort of puja, put one stone there. So this is how architecture, one niche can actually transform your entire approach towards architecture. And that's something which, this is what about this whole ritualistic thing is about. This is part of our culture. Probably it can happen only in our country. But this is how the things get built up, get richness, the stories are built. So what we talk about episodic architecture is these are the stories which get built over the time. And this is that path you discover, which Kevoria keeps talking about, which we try to sort of, achieve it in every project, where you create that ritualistic path where you keep discovering spaces after spaces. So this is that temple what I wanted to show. So this was the house where Swamiji used to live about almost 100 years back. This was when we went there, one old person was staying there, and there was hardly anything around. But it's kind of situated in, this is the scenario around. But what happens is there is one nice stretch of water right in front, and in front of that there is one Tulsi Brindavan where those Swamiji's ashes are there. So there is some kind of a sacredness to this whole thing. And in fact, first time when we went and saw this, there was a peacock sitting there. So it really transported us into something very, very different. So that's the connection with water. This was the house the way it was with all these photographs and all, pretty dilapidated. And also, we thought that why not create a small museum kind of thing with belongings of Swamiji, and his philosophy and his writings would be written there. There was a small well at the end of the courtyard, and wanted to make use of that, so we started restoring that. So they bought a plot beyond that, which is a very narrow, and this house was demolished in between when we went there. This must have been a row house earlier, but when we went there, it was not there. So we said, let's see how do we make use of that space. And this is a very long and narrow plot at the end of it, and surrounded by all green. It's right in the village. So this is how, from the end of the plot, when you look back at that house, this is how it looked like. So this was a situation. You had this house, and you have this long strip of thing with water in front, and then this very narrow road which comes. In the beginning of the road, there is one more temple. Actually, a couple of shrines are there right in the beginning. So these were the trees, and that Tulsi Vrindavan, what I was talking about, right in the front. We started sort of creating these courts as a experiential path, what you would take. So probably you were dip your feet into the water first, and then come through this court, and then start responding to the existing structure. The well which was there, so we introduced one. Eventually, it's not yet done, but we wanted that to walk through the water, so you actually put your feet into water and then come in, which happens in some of these temples in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and all. So wherever there was a well, we introduce a water body, what you see there, next to that. So the water just gets connected before you reach the temple. Then we added a few of these walls with a olden kind of a similar materials being used to sort of connect it. And then they wanted a guest house, a space in the middle, and finally the temple, which comes as a focal point. So you kind of, typically you walk through and discover the temple, and then most of these temples in, again, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, they have these red colors with white strips. That's something which is a typical kind of a symbolic, sort of connection as a temple. So we wanted to use that red and white, which you see here as well. So that color started coming in, and we still wanted to create a modern form, but still it had to look like a temple, because a common villager should able to identify it as a temple. So this is how this entire thing came up. These were the sections. This topmost point had to sit on the where the deity sits. So some of these things had to be looked in. The way the light sort of comes in. So this was a well. So if you see the plan, we had to remove some of the walls, open it up, make it more accessible from the side road rather from the front, and then make it almost like a museum kind of. And we wanted to have some of these sounds and all, which would probably, you would have some of these bhajans playing, some of the talks of the Swamiji would be there. So these were some very initial renderings. How you would sort of rework on that. These two walls were connected, and then only the inner part of this has a red color. And then we wanted to put one of these big rocks kind of thing, which hasn't happened, and then opened up those openings on the right, and what you see beyond is a temple. So this is the connection. We changed these windows and added those typical Indian, where the shutter opens right up to the floor, so you get breeze onto the body when you sit on the floor. And this is that water which gets connected. Now, again, just to talk about water, it becomes so sacred the moment you put it there. We had never expected that when that inauguration happened, people started putting that water on their head, and also it suddenly gains a sacredness for no reason. This is looking back. So initially we were looking at it as a complete white thing, which most of our buildings are white, sitting on a green. But eventually it became red because we thought this has a stronger connection. But yeah, okay, I'll show it. I'll take it beyond. So this is the entire form, the way it sort of cascades down, and the quality of light which comes into the space. This is looking back at the entry with the way the light comes in. So this was just before the pandemic started, and then there was an inauguration, and we were asked to come there, and then as we were approaching the whole place, there's a whole lot of people just walking through the fields and all, and then we realized that there was so much of a crowd that we couldn't even enter the place. It was as crowded as that. And so this is how this whole, during inauguration, the way we experienced it. But what was nice is we designed these places for people. We want them to get absorbed into the space, and you want this to happen. You want people to become part of the architectural ambience. So it was not for the photography, for taking those typical shots which will get published, but this is the energy that what we were looking at, which was happening. And one of the rituals is to climb up right onto the top. Only few people get access to it, to that kalasha when it is put. So being an architect through this crowd, somebody pulled us and then took us all the way up. So this is what the thing is. And this is what I was talking about. At some of them were trying to put your feet there, putting flour into it and putting that water on the head, and also, so suddenly it gained a totally different kind of a feel. So this is all during that inauguration. Framing some of the views. So this is the relationship. This is a typical temple in South. So we were just trying to play with that bit of a white, which I'm not sure we're thinking of removing that white and making it all red. So these are few of the shots. Actually, we haven't been able to photograph it and all because after pandemic, we have really not gone there and seen it. So that's the restored house. Still a lot of, the problem with temple and all, they will start putting those kind of pots in, which we'll have no control over it. So this is the connection. Looking back at the entry, framing some of these views, the skylights, and the overall form. So that's the last slide, and the pursuit of sacred space goes on because you are never satisfied. Whatever you do, you feel that you should have done something more, and I think that's fun being an architect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your narration has definitely helped us to ponder onto how to create a space that makes us feel connected, safe, and calm, thereby adding a dimension to our storytelling. Now, I would like to invite architect Ravi Gupta to come on the stage and present a token of gratitude to our master speaker. Thank you.